Today people, I'm going to be going over roguelikes, the best ones I've ever played, and which ones I think are well worth your time, probably above most of the others. With roguelikes being more popular now than ever before, and a lot of new players trying out the genre, sometimes with just how many games there are out at the moment, and with more flooding the market each year, it can be quite tough to work out which ones are worth your investment. In this video, I'll be going over the best roguelikes I've ever personally played, and why I think they rise above all of the rest. Now if you enjoyed this video, a like would be much appreciated, and if you want to stick around until the end, I'll be throwing on a bonus fourth roguelike. There's a bit of a newer one that I've only just found out about that's really awesome and can be an absolute blast to play. So jumping straight over to the best side-scrolling roguelike, and for me it has to be Dead Cells. Taking on the role of what is essentially an alien blob, your first task is to jump onto a beheaded prisoner, and from there you begin your adventure, through some nicely designed platforming levels, all with their own unique aesthetics. As with most games, you'll start off very weak at the beginning, and the first few hours can be quite punishing, as you get to grips with the game mechanics and work your way through the levels, trying not to lose too much health whilst grabbing cells along the way so you can use them later to purchase fan blueprints and other items, as well as permanent upgrades like weapon quality, drop chance. Now while you're exploring these levels, you'll want to look out for the scrolls of power, as these can drastically affect your build and really help you to boost your damage and health. In between levels, you'll get the chance to upgrade your character by enhancing and modifying your weapons and skills, as well as adding mutations to your character to further enhance your build and playstyle that you're going for. In my opinion, Dead Cells has some of the very best power scaling I've seen in the game, and once you know what you're doing, you can become an absolute monster that can smash your foes to pieces. But make no mistake, even then the risk of dying is still always there, as you'll often have to make your way past some well placed traps, as well as overcome some standard and elite enemies along the way. I would love nothing more than to see you completely start your run again from scratch. And believe me, that will happen a lot. You'll be falling over again and again until you learn certain maps, enemies, and what to be wary of. But after a while, you'll start to build up your character's possible starter items, and when you do eventually complete a full run, you'll also be able to chuck boss cells into the starting tube to make the runs even harder, but also more rewarding. Best of all, one of the free updates they added a while back saw them put in the boss rush mode, where you take on some of the bosses you tackle in game and face them one after another. This can be a lot of fun to play, fighting the biggest and baddest enemies around, and if you want to chuck it into custom mode, it's probably the fastest way to test weapons and skills, as well as grab yourself a massive amount of cells in order to unlock more blueprints for costumes, weapons and other upgrades. Speaking of weapons, Dead Cells has them in abundance, all the way from shields for those of you who like to parry attacks, or if you're more like me and absolutely suck at that, then you can rely more on your trusty ranged or melee weapons, some of which are completely devastating. Others, as well as some of the skills, are quite unique and wacky. The game has its own quirky sense of humour, and I for one never thought I'd have so much fun turning into a chicken that lays explosive eggs, blowing away your enemies as you run past them. Finally, the icing on the cake is because the game has been out for some time now, they've put out a lot of patches and updates, tweaking it to almost perfection, as well as adding a whole host of DLC, with their latest DLC seeing you encounter some well-known faces from the Castlevania franchise, such as Alucard and Richter Belmont, or face off against Death and of course the big bad Dracula himself. Ultimately, Dead Cells is an absolutely awesome game with a lot going for it, perfect for anyone looking to sink their teeth into a roguelike. This next one is very different from the type of game I usually play, because it's actually a deck building game called Spire. However, as soon as I started playing this game, I was just completely hooked. You'll start off with just one class available to you, that of the Ironclad, pretty much the game's version of the warrior class, and you'll then need to make your way through different acts, choosing which path to take along the way. These are randomly generated, so no run will be quite like the last. Very quickly I learnt that you can't just power through this game, and the combat had a very fine line between using your resources to try to take the enemy down, or to use them to mitigate the damage they were going to do to you when attacking. Even some of the smallest enemies were taking down my health bar, so you'll definitely need to pick wisely how you make your way up the Spire, as your aim is to make it to the boss for each act in order to take them down and move on to the next act. Along the way you'll be met by random encounters with various rewards such as extra health or gold, but they can sometimes affect you negatively as well, like give you a curse to make you lose health or other detrimental attributes. You'll also have to decide whether to tackle standard enemies or elites, and whilst the elites are much tougher, to beat them you'll be rewarded with a random relic, which can almost always permanently buff your character in some way. As well as the enemies though, an integral part is resting at campfires to regain your health, or instead upgrading your cards that you have available, in order to make a better build and take enemies down easier. The cards are the most important part of this game, and like most games come in varying tiers, all the way up to legendary. You're going to be obtaining these as you play, but a merchant can also be amazing for finding some of the best ones possible, as well as some nice relics. When you do finally make it to the boss of each act, you're definitely going to have your work cut out for you as they're randomly generated, and each act can have any one from 3 possible bosses, and some are definitely much tougher than others. As long as your character has some nice cards and you're playing well, then you'll be able to take them down and reap the rewards, which fortunately enough can easily be some of the most powerful items for your class, as you'll be able to pick a legendary card as well as a boss relic, and some of these can be extremely strong, so make sure you pick wisely before moving on to the next act. There are 3 acts in total, and you'll need to use some good judgment to make yourself strong enough to take down elite enemies and bosses, whilst also maintaining health to get through the next battles, enough to last you at least until you can hit a campfire and rest. Some enemies hit like an absolute truck, as I found out the first time I lost to the boss of Act 2 with him having only 2 HP left. As you play, you're going to unlock more and more, as well as in total 4 classes, each with their very own unique style and cards. Whether it be poison, elemental, or a class where you switch auras to help your fighting style, there'll almost definitely be one type of character that you enjoy playing. The game can in fact be quite addictive, and I easily found myself sinking a couple of hours in at a time without even realising it. Not only will you be trying to unlock new cards, characters and relics, but also as you play and eventually beat the boss of Act 3, you'll then be able to unlock the ascendancy for that class. This will add modifiers onto your run, and I believe it goes all the way up to 20. Each time you complete the previous one, the next one will be unlocked. But definitely don't take these lightly, the enemies can take you down very fast in this mode. As well as the standard runs however, you can create custom matches and do a daily climb where you run as a set character with certain modifiers on it, and you can also see how well you do when compared to others who play the game online. Even now, the game has a really decent amount of players online because it's one of the very best out there, giving you a real kind of Dungeons and Dragons vibe due to the random nature of events and encounters, but also giving you enough control to create a truly unique build ready for what lies ahead. Everyone will definitely have their own personal favourite, but for me, Hades is the best roguelike I've ever played. Everything about this game is just done so well. At first glance, you're going to think the game was pretty straightforward, as you take on the role of Zagreus and you essentially have to make your way through various dungeon-like rooms in order to defy your father Hades and escape the underworld. I am however not doing the game any justice in that plotline, as there's always so much more going on with the storyline. Little quips from the gods, small self-contained story arcs within it really makes this game a pleasure to play, and the voice actors for the gods are absolutely exceptional.
That must have hurt. Have you tried getting behind something?
Each one brings so much to their character that it makes you want to click on them just to see what they're gonna say next.
It was quick. What news, boy? Ready to give up or no?
The combat systems are also really good, and they're massively enhanced by the gods upgrades that you're picking up throughout your runs, as each of them have their own unique buffs and strengths that can really upgrade or completely change the build you're going for. Some of them will work in every build, other times you may have to have a bit of luck on your side or build around certain weapons. You're going to make your way through the 4 different zones in the game as you tackle enemies, traps and bosses, powering up as you go. Each one of these zones has a distinct feel for it, usually quite noticeable by its prominent colouring scheme, such as the second area Asphodel being very red and often has lava areas all over the layout. There will be a host of features ready to help you out as you start getting better at the game and earning resources. You'll be able to invest them in such things as keepsakes that can give you permanent buffs to your character, like extra damage and health, companions that serve as a sort of summons. Then you've got the Mirror of Night, where you'll be investing a lot of one of your resources into it, as it can provide permanent health restores, damage buffs, extra revives and much more. But you'll also have some other cool features, such as the Contractor, which allows you to customise your home hub area. There's so much in the game to unlock and invest in, and I haven't even got to the weapons yet, which are probably the most integral part of the game. Each of these have their own unique playstyle and synergies, and can range from a whole host of different swords, including the awesome Excalibur with its massive AoE effect, all the way over to things such as fists if you're up for that close and personal feel, or even shields or artillery if you're after that slightly more ranged effect. There's a whole bunch of different weapon types and variations to unlock, meaning you're never really going to get bored, as mixing in the god aspects and upgrades gives you hundreds of variations as you play. Not only that, but as you start completing your runs, you'll be able to add on what's known as extra heat, which is basically modifiers up in the difficulty of the game and the enemies that you're going to face within. This in fact becomes so difficult late game that at the max heat of I believe 64 it's almost impossible, and only very recently has someone been able to complete it. All in all, this game will see you upgrade your character, talk to, take on and take out some of the most well known Greek mythology gods, all in an effort to overcome the ultimate father and son showdown. Hades is anything but easy, and you'll very often be seeing the screen right here as you fall over time and time again, but with just how good the game is, that's definitely no reason not to start up another run straight away afterwards.
One more time.
Overtime.
For this last one, roguelike, I'm not entirely sure which one this comes under. Chuck it in the comments if I've got it wrong. But I've only recently come across this game, and I think a lot of people that like roguelikes will really enjoy this as well. It's one of those auto shooter games where you try and power up your player, grab yourself a whole bunch of spells and special moves, taking on hordes and waves of enemies while selecting your power ups as you level up. Anyone who's ever heard of Vampire Survivors will no doubt see the similarities in this, as the mechanics in place are almost identical. However, this one, I really like the aesthetics of it, the 3D settings and characters. It's all very vibrant and fast paced. You can also grab yourself a whole bunch of weapons that you can upgrade and make really powerful, and this actually has some really strong and fun builds that you can make in it, such as Thorns, which I found out is pretty overpowered, and if you get in the right build with the right character, you can actually just run through waves of enemies whilst making them take themselves out. You're going to need to complete certain stages in order to move on to the next one, and also complete certain challenges and tasks in order to unlock stars and move on to some of the tougher settings. Alongside this, you're also going to have trinkets that's going to help to enhance and power up your character, a whole host of features to unlock, and of course characters to go alongside that. There's 24 that you can unlock in total, and all of them start off with a different starter weapon, some of which can make you quite overpowered very early on. Now, there's only 24 characters in this as opposed to quite a few more in the Vampire Survivors, and after sinking several days into this game, I have seen the similarities are quite massive with that game, so it could be considered a kind of clone, but I think I've actually had more fun playing this game. There'll obviously be people who enjoy Survivors more, but some people I think will definitely enjoy this more. One of the really nice things that I liked in this game was the fact that there's set amount of waves per level, and when you look on your map, you can kind of target little areas or little elite sub-bosses in order to go farm them for their power-ups. Like I said, you're going to be able to make some really powerful builds in this, they're very fun to play, and as you start upgrading your character, you're also going to have much more chance to get through the levels, because the game itself can actually be very difficult, especially when you start playing some of the later stages and you chuck on some modifiers within them, making it even tougher. Another really nice thing with this, whenever you're picking your power-ups, you'll be able to see exactly which ones are going to benefit from what, making your choices much easier if you're trying to fully upgrade your weapons to the next special level. And alongside that, the more you take of certain attributes means that you're going to make them even more powerful, so you can really tweak a build to exactly what you're after. Another really nice feature, when you're completing the levels, each one of the stages will have a boss that appears that you're going to have to destroy before you get completely overwhelmed by the screen being covered by enemies. It's quite a nice thing having a boss at the end of each of these levels, and overall I feel this is just a great game to jump into for a few hours if you love mowing down waves of enemies. As always, there'll be a lot more content from me. Hope you've enjoyed the video. For now, take care. I'll see you on the next day.